Hey everyone, CWD Music Reviews here. I'm CWD and this is going to be a music review of the new Mackelmore and Ryan Lewis album, This Unruly Mess I've Made. This is the sophomore release of rapper-producer duo Mackelmore and Ryan Lewis. They hit it big about 4 years ago when they dropped their album The Heist, and the success was kind of latent because they took off in their careers when the single Thrift Shop came out and really just became this phenomenon for independent hip-hop and Macklemore and Ryan Lewis in general. Thrift Shop being this song about going to a thrift shop, going out and spending money on hand-me-downs and stuff that's not expensive as like your big brand names. That was certainly a positive message for hip-hop, and several other singles they were to drop and other songs on that album, mainly Same Love, would be something pivotal for this duo and for this generation of the genre. It's not to say that we haven't had conscious hip-hop in a while, but it's interesting that these guys, mainly Macklemore, are blowing up because of it. They pretty much now making hip-hop that your mother allows your kids to listen to. But with this new album, the vulgarity comes up, and I don't know if that's going to be remaining the case. This album, in terms of what I think about it, can't say that I love it. This was actually relatively disappointing. Now, this album's about 13 tracks in length. It's kind of a hodgepodge in a way, in terms of production. You have this first half, which has like a variety of different styles. The first track, Light Tunnels, it's got a really strong orchestral feel that has these beat switches every verse, and that's certainly something I like. Downtown has like a strong funk vibe that rivals Uptown Funk. Brad Pitt's cousin, while I'm not that fond of this track, but I'll get to that in a minute, is like this strong, kind of a banger, and it pretty much goes in terms of the beat. Even though I'm not that fond of the down-pitched vocals, they're really obnoxious. Buckshots actually has co-production from Mr. DJ Premier. Yay, DJ Premier! It's got the strong boom-bap-ish vibe. It sounds like East Coast. It sounds like the North, and I certainly enjoy it for that, especially the suburban vibe this beat tries to go for. The song Kevin starts signaling that the production was going to go for instrumentation that's more soulful, laid back, maybe somewhat jazzy, and just more piano driven than anything else. And that seems to be the case with a good chunk of the tracks here, which kind of really sullies the quality of this album. Like on St. Ides, The Train, and a few others. But I think the worst track on this album in terms of production is Dance Off. Idris Elba comes in and has like this really obnoxious British thing. I challenge you to a dance-off. The beat is just so uncharacteristic of the aristocratic nature of Elba's voice. Maybe there's a point to that, but I can't say I'm really particularly that into it. Anderson .Paak actually has a feature on it, and it's boring. It's too brief for words, and this is probably the first feature that Anderson .Paak has ever done that I can honestly say I'm disappointed with. White Privilege 2 actually does the same thing Light Tunnels does, but maybe a bit more jazzy, a bit more upfront, but I can't say White Privilege 2 is one of my favorite tracks in the album, nor do I agree with its placement as the closer. Now, that's the Ryan Lewis end of things, which is decent enough. I give it to Ryan Lewis for coming together with some variation in the beats, but I can't say I enjoy all of it. What about the Mackelmore end of things? Well, Light Tunnels, kind of a really interesting first-person look on Macklemore's view of the Grammys, how he's caking up all this makeup just to go in, and the woman says Macklemore may seem orange, but that's natural for his skin color, which is weird. He's talking about how the media like preys on controversy. They want to see Kanye West rant. They want to see Britney Spears and Madonna kiss, and they want to see all this other stuff. Mackelmore actually also has like this kind of turn of phrase where he says, so-and-so is this, so-and-so is with this person, so-and-so looks a little old for their age. And it all ends up with Mackelmore eventually getting the Grammy, and feeling at the same time narcissistic for talking about himself and thanking himself and other people, while all the same time he feels cheated for being cut off. Though what's interesting about this, it's an interesting look on award shows and how a new artist feels about award shows, and it's just weird how, despite all of his insecurities about the situation, he says he wants to attend again. So it kind of sullies the message he's trying to go for on the track. Downtown is a funny track about buying a moped and just riding this moped throughout downtown. I think the message gets a little lost, but it's a funny track. So is Brad Pitt's Cousin, though I can't say I even like the lyricism on this track. It seems a bit braggadocious for Mackelmore, especially when he's talking about how his cat has more Instagram followers than anyone, and now that his cat's meowed on this track, his cat is now more famous than everyone. And there's also this angle about Brad Pitt's ugly cousin still getting some sex and all that because he's Brad Pitt's cousin. Again, the message just kind of gets lost. And I think that seems to be the case with a good chunk of the tracks. The difference between the tracks that I like are the ones where the message is clear. Take Kevin, for example. Beautiful song about the loss of loved ones to drug addiction. And beautiful critiquing of how drugs like Adderall and Xanax and all this other stuff are legal in the United States, can be acquired at any time, but it's also the one that's taking the lives of so many people. Well, the track Let's Eat, not a production choice that I care for, but it's funny. It's about wanting to have this nice body, want to look good, but also liking your favorite foods like tacos and burgers and soda. It's a really interesting look at this cognitive dissonance that I enjoy quite a bit. Especially the line where he says, "She's shaped like a bottle of Coke, I'm shaped like a bottle of Nope." And there's also this funny line about how he wants to get fit enough to become the 2015 Batman, and he goes against Ben Affleck and says, "If you're not going to treat Jennifer Garner good, you might as well give her to Matt Damon. He'll eat that ass like Pac-Man." But those are like mainly the tracks on the album that stays focused on a singular theme. White Privilege 2 does as well. It's just that it's not a bad song lyrically. It's just that he tries to do a Kendrick Lamar. He tries to give us all these different perspectives about the whole idea of white privilege and Black Lives Matter and what his music has done for communities. It's just that these different points of views are too stereotypical for me to take them like completely seriously. And Mackelmore himself doesn't sound 100% compelling about the idea of white privilege either. I mean, he's over here saying, "Oh, well, I've been talking about it first. I've been saying the same thing before I was famous, and okay, just sound compelling about this thing that you seem to be so passionate about and have been talking about before." He doesn't really do that for me, so that's one of the reasons why this track is not really a fitting closer for the album. The song Growing Up is a great track by itself, but in the context of the album, it's just another one of those piano-driven tracks that have like a beautiful message about how he's going to try to be a good father whilst being this famous musician, and how his advice for this child. Normally, you don't advise your children to jaywalk, but he's saying, okay, jaywalk, but make sure you look both ways across the street before you do so. And if you're going to go to prom, don't get too drunk. And it's funny. He's being self-aware. He's not being stupid about how these children are going to, make their mistakes or do things that aren't exactly like model behavior. And yeah, I think it's cool. Though, again, there are tracks that I really don't care for lyrically, seeing as how disjointed they feel. Buckshot, while I do like the beat quite a bit, it doesn't come clear to me that it's about graffiti until somewhere around the second half of Macklemore's second verse, or the KRS-One feature, which is really good. St. Ides, kind of an introspective track, and it's too laid back and too subdued for its own good. I mean, the lyrics have some beautiful moments on the track, but still. Need to Know, while it's a likable track, but I just wish Chance the Rapper wasn't the better rapper on this track. Mackelmore just seems to not really come with better lyricism than he can, and unfortunately that leads to Chance the Rapper having the better verse, which is okay. I mean, I like Chance the Rapper as a feature guest, now anyway, but still it's kind of weird that the guest is doing better than the person billed for this album. And then there's Bolo, which, I don't know what Macklemore is trying to get at with this track, especially when he's like, "Motherfucker, you ain't my accountant." Okay, that doesn't mean I can't, you know, criticize your actions or anything like that. The Train, I would consider liking this track if the instrumental wasn't this laid back and Macklemore just sounds so soft-spoken on this track. There seems to be something about him being on this train and talking to a loved one, but it just doesn't compel me in any way whatsoever. So yeah, somewhat conflicted about this album. While I do like this album, I just don't see it as great or even something to return to. This was really disappointing, honestly. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say. This was a somewhat hyped release, and I was hoping it would follow up the heist really well, but it doesn't. It's just mired in its own somewhat schizophrenic nature. It's not even like a Life of Pablo kind of schizophrenic. It's more like trying to throw a whole bunch of ideas to the wall schizophrenic, and it just seems disjointed for its own good. Now, there's some really good tracks on this album, but then again, there's some tracks that I just either don't care for that much or I just dislike. So that's pretty much my thoughts on it. This album is a plus 1.2 out of plus 3. It's enjoyable enough. I can't say that it's something I'm going to return to often. So yeah, if you've given this Mackelmore and Ryan Lewis album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you like this album? Did you dislike this album? What was your reasoning behind that? And what should I consider reviewing next? This is CDD Music Reviews here, signing off.